Hello and welcome to Kinsei-Do Corner. Have you ever wondered how to unlock your full potential and live your healthiest, most fulfilling life? Then this podcast is here to help you achieve just that. We dive deep into the world of health and performance, exploring how to move better, feel better, and live a healthier, more fulfilling life. I chat with inspiring coaches, athletes, health experts, and high performers from all walks of life to learn from their stories, mindsets, and lifestyle choices. Whether you're an experienced high performer or new to the world of health and well-being, I'm in your corner to guide you on the path to being the healthiest, happiest, and highest performing version of yourself. Let's go.
And hello again. Welcome back to Kinsei-Do Corner. Another month, another podcast. This week, I have a colleague from BSJ on my show again, similar to the last episode that I did with Randolph. Today, I have the third piece of the Fitbuller competition puzzle. So Jeannine was on our team. Jeannine, Randolph, and myself, we competed at Fitbuller, which I talked in length about with Randolph. And today, I'm really thrilled to have Jeannine here on the show to dive into some other fitness-related topics. Welcome, Jeannine. How are you?
Thank you, Johannes. I'm very excited. I'm very well. I'm a bit nervous, actually.
Yeah, don't be. It's all good. We're just having a chat. Don't ignore the recording. We're just having a chat like we always do.
Okay.
So, yeah, let's talk first a little bit about who you are and your background in fitness. Obviously, I said that you were part of. You, me, and Randolph, we did the Fitbuller competition. So that kind of tells the audience that we dabble in CrossFit. I wouldn't call ourselves CrossFitters, but we dabble in CrossFit. And how did that happen for you? And what's your background in terms of sports and fitness?
Well, it's kind of recent, I wouldn't say, but my son turned 18 this year. So I would say it's about 18 years ago that I started being very aware of fitness and starting paying more attention to a healthy lifestyle. I think I'm Dutch. I'm from the Netherlands. I was born and raised in the Netherlands. And I think being fit and healthy was just normal when we were growing up. Like Dutch people are very no nonsense, and you bike to school, you bike everywhere. You endure rain, hail, snow, and you just bike. There's no such thing as bad weather. There's such a thing as bad clothing. So these are all like micro strategies that have been put into you while you're growing up. So, which I thought was kind of interesting to tell. But I lived in a village, and I had to go to a secondary school in a city. So I had to bike to school 18 kilometers a day. That's one way. And this was normal because all the kids of the villages were in one class, so we could bike together in the morning. So we just left 6:45, maybe an hour and 15 minutes to get to school. So I did not need much other exercise because I was already biking 36 kilometers a day. And I did some swimming and I did judo because I was living in a village. There were not much opportunities to do other things. And then when you become a teenager, you come in not so much of a healthy lifestyle. You try out different things, and I tried smoking, which was not a really, really good choice. And I think I smoked for 15 years until I was almost 30. And one day from the other day, I just had enough of being a prisoner of being a smoker. And I think that's maybe a red line through everything is when people say you can't do something, I'll do it. Like, give me the challenge. So they said to me, you cannot stop smoking because you've been smoking so long. I'm like, you watch me. So I quit within a year. And then I started, when you stop smoking, you start paying more attention to a healthier lifestyle. So I started going to the gym, but it was still quite low key. And people would say, like, it's not possible for you to stop smoking. I did. It's not possible for you to start running or be able to run a 5 or a 10K. And I like these challenges. I like when people say that to me because then I take that up as a challenge. And when my son was born, I had pregnancy diabetes and I was very, very overweight. And after the baby was born, I had to shed a lot of weight. And at that time, we moved to Sydney, Australia, and for my husband's work. and we were living at the beach, and everybody not in Australia, but in Sydney was working out. Like I had never seen, this is 2008, and I'd never seen such a thing. People are working out during their lunchtime, personal trainers, running in the morning. Everybody was working out. So that was a normal lifestyle. And I thought, okay, this is the time, because I wasn't working. I just had a baby, and I started, doing what the people did there. I started ocean swimming and running, and that's actually how it started. And I think within 4 months I shed about 20 kilos, and then I became addicted to the endorphins. But also I realized as a new mom, when you do, because I like long distance running, when you do longer runs, you have more me time. So I started running longer and longer. And actually, my first long race was the City to Surf. It's very famous in Australia. You run from the CBD to the beach in Bondi, where we were living. And I thought that is going to be my goal, because I need goals, fitness goals in my life to keep going. And yeah, I did that run as a 16K. And I think when I finished, I cried, because for me, it was like I finished a marathon, because I didn't know that, like, you can, after birth, that your body is pretty damaged after giving birth. And I didn't know that my body could become that strong, that I could run that far. Even people would say, because the people who were supposed to support me, they were not at the finish, because it took me so long. And they actually had gone to a party, because we would go attend a beach party after that. So I was pretty upset. I was happy and upset, because they didn't wait for me because I took so long. But I didn't care, because it was my victory. And I think from that moment on, I thought I can, if you set your mind to things, you can accomplish so many things, despite all the, I wouldn't say haters, but despite all the people who say you can't do it. So yeah, that's where my journey started, actually, because I became a mother. I needed more me time. I needed to get my body into shape. And I already knew when my son was born, he was so active, hyperactive, always running and outside and playing. I needed to be a parent that could keep up with my child. So that's why I had to get in shape. And I think that was my main motivation.
Wow. That's amazing. It kind of gives us a glimpse of what we want to talk about later in this episode, which is obviously the health and the active nature of kids. But I do want to kind of touch upon a few things that you said there earlier. First of all, the biking 36 kilometers every day, that's really crazy. I mean, I guess you get used to it, but it is, wow, that's like it's almost 200 kilometers a week, isn't it? That's like really,
Yeah.
really
I was 12
cycling
years
training.
old.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that builds you a base endurance that probably never goes away, right? Yes, you get less fit, but you can come back to it. And as you then did 20 or something years later, you came back to it and you were able to build up to run the 16K. And I know you've run longer since then as well. And the other thing is, it's just really, really, I'm going to say heartwarming or impressive that that particular moment of becoming a mother and seeing, okay, now it's not just about me. Now I need to be the role model. I need to be able and capable of keeping up physically with the child as it's growing and as it's getting more active. And that's really so inspiring, especially with what you mentioned, that so many people were doubting you and telling you can't do it, and all that stuff. That's probably very Dutch, isn't it? because here in Indonesia, I think here in Indonesia you have the opposite, right? People are very, very supportive. They then don't necessarily follow through with it, but first when you say a goal, everyone's on board and everyone thinks, yes, of course we can do it. And then maybe when the hard work starts, it kind of fades away. But it sounds to be the opposite, right? People in Holland seem to be trying to motivate you by telling you can't do it, and
Yeah, I
hoping
think
that motivates you.
like you German people, Dutch people are very direct, so they wouldn't really give rep things like, why would you do that? That is impossible. Or you've been doing this for so long. How can you not, it's also a bit sarcasm probably, but yeah. And I think that sort of laid something in me that I always wanted to prove not to other people, but to myself. Okay, let's see if I cannot do it. Because what I've learned in this journey is that your body is capable of so many things that you cannot, that you never thought you could do. And I like to look what my limits are.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, look where it took us, right? The Fitbuller contest, lifting 40 kilos, sandbags, and all of these things. So yeah, there's no limit to what you can do if you put your
But
head to it.
I think you're right. The Indonesian people would not say, and they might have thought it like, are these three people crazy? Because together we were about 150 years old.
Yeah.
Well, everybody else was definitely 20 years younger than us. And nobody told us, maybe you train a little bit more. Maybe you try this first. No, they were very encouraging. And they said, go for it and try to do as much as you can. And I really like that here in Indonesia. People
Yeah,
are so
yeah.
supportive.
Yeah, that's totally true. The community here is great, and it might be the CrossFit community, or it might be the wider Indonesian context. We don't really know, but yeah, the definitely the community that we had the pleasure of going to the Fitbuller with, they were all very supportive, even though we were clearly not up there with the others. Right. Let's move into the topic that we actually kind of want to dissect more in this episode, which you already alluded to. Your son being born was kind of the catalyst for you to quit smoking and to get active again, and really take health and fitness seriously again. So fast forward a few years, your son being a little bit older, then your daughter was born. What's the age difference between them?
They're 5 years apart.
5 years apart. So yeah. So remembering how my son was when he was 5, he was already very active. So assuming yours being the same, then your daughter comes along. So now you've got these energy bundles in your house. Did that kind of motivate you further? Did that change the way you train? Did that change how you think about, like, as you said, you need goals, right? But goals when you're a parent and might not be next few months, next year, it might be really long term. So how did having two children change your maybe your philosophy about fitness and health?
It's a big question because I think especially maybe running, because running is easy accessible. You don't need money. You just need a pair of shoes and you can just go out and run. Is very complicated running, because when you run, you get peace of mind, physically, but also mentally, mostly mentally. And you have time to think. And when you are a new mom, there's a lot of things that you want to be a perfect parent. You want to be a good role model. So you have to think about, like, what do I want for my kids? And we were lucky to be in Australia because the Australian lifestyle, especially the one in Australia on the beach in Sydney, was a very healthy one, which was quite new to us coming from the Netherlands, very outdoors. So I noticed that even though I was living in Amsterdam for 20 years, I really enjoyed being outdoors and on the beach and this fresh air and being in the forest, being near the on the coastline. I thought it was really important to me, and I wanted my kids to grow up like that. And around me, because you have to surround yourself with people who are also active when you want to become active and you want to pay more attention to a healthy lifestyle. To me, the Australians were a big example. Like, everybody was out at 6 a.m. on the beach, working out, young people, old people. There are people with kids. There is no excuse not to work out. And it was just such a part of the lifestyle. Before work, people were working out during lunchtime. So I saw that you can find time anywhere in the day to work out if you really want it. Otherwise, it's just an excuse. So I really enjoyed it. And, you get to know a lot of people there with kids, and Australian people are very friendly, and I had many conversations, and I just really enjoyed that lifestyle. And it was also quite simple because I was a stay-at-home mom at that time. And yeah, people say, well, you can train because you have you have nothing to do. You don't have to go to work. So I felt quite guilty about that. Yes, I can train, and I had the time to train for marathons. And yeah, probably maybe they are right. You cannot do this when you are working full time or you have 2 kids. At that time, I only had 1 kid. Now I know, and I figured out along the way, those are just all excuses. It doesn't matter if you work, if you have 7 kids or you have no kids. If you want, you can train for a marathon and you can train every day. It's just all excuses. So I think having kids really made me aware, like what do you feed your kids? So in Australia, that was in 2008, like avocado toast was already like mainstream, like chia seed pudding, everything was gluten-free, and oat milk and all these alternative milk, that was already mainstream in Australia, which was very new to us coming from the Netherlands. So they already had a very healthy lifestyle, which I really enjoyed. And this is what I wanted to give to my kids. I think my son had never been to a really big supermarket until he was 4 years old, and we went back to the Netherlands. He didn't know what a supermarket was because we always went to a fresh market, and I never at that time didn't really go to big supermarkets because I was really focused on healthy food and cooking everything fresh for our kids. And I think in terms of health, if you are a happy mom, you will have a happy child. So for me, I learned that when I work out, I can release my stress, my tension, and I can be a better parent. So I think those 2 things are really important to me, like being a role model, focusing on nutrition, healthy nutrition as much as possible, and exercise to stay sane as a parent. Yeah. I think you might recognize that.
For sure. For me, I really, and this has nothing to do with my son. I love spending time with my son. I love spending time with my wife. But I realize if there's a week or more where I don't work out, my mood drops, and I can't be as present as I want to and as I normally am at home. So it really does something with you physically, obviously, but also mentally to make sure that you stay active. Okay, now kind of going from the past to kind of right now. So now, as you mentioned earlier in the conversation, your son is 18 now, your daughter therefore 13, and I don't know them very well, but I've seen them around school, and they seem to be very, very, very active, very, very active kids, very, very good athletes in various things. So what do you think? How did you, as a parent, either deliberately or accidentally, kind of help shape this behavior and this self-drive for them to be active in several sports, to presumably enjoy several sports? It's something that I think about, and I think perhaps with our kids, we don't really have to push very much because there seems to be something that they like about being active. But you see the majority of children here not just here, not just in Indonesia, majority of children around the world in at least in the West and many countries here in Asia as well, could use a lot more movement. They could definitely use a lot less time on screens and sitting on the couch. So I think a lot of people are probably thinking about how to be, not to say a better parent, but how can they help build this foundation of physical capacity and love for movement in their children. Is this something you thought about actively back then? Is this something you think about now?
Well, I think it's a combination of different things. It's also our Dutch background, because like I said, biking to school, you bike everything. You don't take the car if not necessary. You use your legs because you have healthy legs. There's no reason why you shouldn't walk or you shouldn't bike. So I think resilience is already built, like in a Dutch lifestyle, is quite active. And I think when we had kids, because we are both very active, like physically, because our families are very sporty. I remember my grandparents were quite sporty. You don't have to do sports to lead a healthy lifestyle. You need to have an active lifestyle. So, which means walking, everything that you do, like see monkey, do monkey. You are a role model. This is the only reference that your kids have, is they always see us being active and being busy. And kids are naturally energetic and they need to run around. So we are fortunate enough to have spent a lot of time, a couple of years on the beach in Australia. No, I didn't even wear shoes for the first few years of his life, because you walk straight from the house to the beach without shoes or flip-flops on. So swimming, and to be honest, because I was a stay-home mom at that time and I needed to keep my active child busy, I had enrolled him every day in a different activity, such as swimming. Gymbaroo is what they call it in Australia. It's like a little gym for kids that don't go to school yet. I had him in dance classes. The first club that he could join in the Netherlands was judo. I think you can join that at 4 years old, as well as gymnastics. So tennis at 5 years old, football. Of course, we were well off, so we have the means to be able to expose our kids to that. But you don't have to always do it in an organized way. You can also just go to the park with a ball. That doesn't cost much money. So we did that on purpose because we already saw that Noah and Lucy as well are quite athletic. And if you do not expose them to different kinds of sports, you will never find out, what they're good at. So we did that quite on purpose. So I also am registering him for runs, like, all these kids runs, which he hated. And he couldn't manage at all because I think maybe he was 6 years old and he couldn't even finish a 1K run because he would sprint so hard to be the first, which he could manage for a couple 100 meters, but he couldn't finish the 1K run. And he would stop after 600 meters crying while everybody was passing him. He didn't understand. And I couldn't explain to him that he should pace himself because he was just too young. Yes, I would do such things. And then I would do kids runs together with the kids as well, which I still do. And sometimes I like it and sometimes I don't, because I registered for a 10K with Lucy here in Jakarta and it's very hot here. And she 5K runs, which she said, okay, 10K is only twice the distance, so I can do it. And she didn't train for it. So it was pretty painful, the 10K. And she said she was never going to do that ever again. So sometimes it backfires. So I think, yes. So we did have a plan in place. We exposed them to as much sports as possible. And we joined as much of those races or hikes or challenges with them as we could. And then at some point, and I think you noticed with your son as well, they pick it up by themselves. I'll give you a good example because my son now is 18 and he's on his graduation trip to Bali. And the first night, 6 a.m. in the morning, he sends me a message. And I thought, oh God, might come back from the club or something. No, he sends me a message with a screenshot of his new Garmin watch that we gave him for his graduation, with a 10K and his time, what was, I think, it was around 15 minutes. And he wanted to share that he got up at 6 to go for a 10K run. And I was like,
Brilliant.
I think my job is done.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure many people listening whose kids are not naturally inclined to move will be jealous. And it is something that, perhaps if you didn't do it when they were really young, you kind of, not to say missed the boat, but you have, in a sense, right? Because then now they've come to a point where they're 8, 9, 10 years old, maybe far less motorically capable than their friends, and then they feel ashamed, and then they don't want to join, and it just snowballs into more of into less and less movement and more of the problematic screen time and everything else that's replacing movement. But I guess both for you and me, we're fortunate. Our children are naturally inclined and naturally want to move. But the thing that and maybe you can talk to how that, if that was a thing for your son when he was 5 or 6 years younger than he is now, which is something that I'm starting to see with my son, is that because they were always so naturally good at things, they never really had to put in much work, right? They just step on the football field and they can play. They grab the tennis racket and they can play. So at some point, suddenly, yes, that's good to have that natural ability, but at some point you actually have to put in work. You have to do conditioning in order to keep up. You've got to do strength training so that you don't get pushed off the ball all the time by other kids. So how do you think about, or did you think about, instilling that kind of motivation or that will to do the work that isn't fun, right? That isn't going out and playing with your friends, but it's going and doing drills or working on your flexibility or things like that. Did you make your kids do that? Did they do that by themselves?
Well, I think this is also having role models, which are also peers. It's not just your parents, but it's also friends of your parents, friends of, kids of friends that are athletic, or you this is, I think, what most parents do. You choose your kids' friends, to be honest, because you want them to surround themselves with a certain group of people that they can learn from. And this is what I see. And don't forget that when kids do a lot of exercise or are very active since they are young, they build a lot of confidence. This is my experience. They are not afraid because they can swim at young age. They can swim with strangers in pools and have fun with other kids. They can play when you're on holiday. They can just show up on a field and join a group of other kids playing football. So, and this builds their confidence. And when they see other people, maybe they are better, like you become a bit competitive. My son is quite competitive, so he likes to, measure himself with a friend that is equally good at football, maybe even better. And he will put in the work, because when you put in the work, you will become better and you become more competitive, I think, in a quite pleasant way. And what you said is well, I kind of like that. Is you might be good at certain sports and you might not be good at other sports. Like I know my son, I made him swim in my previous school in Shanghai. Join the swim team, because I think swimming is a valuable skill. And he was already a very good swimmer, and he did not really enjoy swimming as much as he did football. And I could see that. So I was just registering him every year until he said, "Mom, I actually don't want to swim anymore." And I said, "Sure, that's fine." Like I never made it an issue. But here in Jakarta, I mean, it's hot, it's different lifestyle here. It's not as much to do as there is in Shanghai. And he had a lot of sporty athletic friends here at school, and they were doing rugby. When he's not good at rugby, he doesn't even know how to play rugby. And yet he joined the rugby team because he just enjoyed being with his friends, being active, and then at the same time learning a new sport, which also builds resilience, because you're not good at everything, and losing or not being really good at something is also part of growing. And I really see that in my daughter as well, because she admires her brother, and I'll take her to competitions, also the school competitions abroad. I'll take, a, I can't leave her home alone, but I
Hmm.
also take a certain purpose, because he is a role model to her, his teammates. But not only that, there's also a girls team. So she can also see the girls winning or losing, or being, being athletes, which, yeah, I think is incredibly important for her as well, and for girls as well, to see, other girls were playing and working out and doing different kind of sports. New sports, like Lucy picked up basketball here at BSJ. She picked up touch rugby, volleyball, just to see, where am I good at? What do I enjoy? And not being afraid to try something new. So I think if you're intrinsically motivated, that, you'll put in the work, because you see that it makes you grow and you'll get better. And when you surround yourself, I think that is really important. When you surround yourself with peers or like-minded people, that is also your support network. Like when things are not going well, when you do lose that game and you do not make it, you're not champion, and that really creates this great community of people, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, to a certain extent, the same goes for adults, right? We also, why are CrossFit gyms, why is High Rocks as a community, why is that exploding so much? It's because people enjoy going and working out and suffering through hard things with other people together, right? Not many enjoy it the same way when they have to train that way alone. So yeah, I mean, this is really, it kind of reassuring to me that I'm on the right path with with my boy, because
Oh, for sure,
if he
yeah.
if he goes the way that your boy has gone, then I'll be happy.
Yeah, and I think everybody has their own path, and they have to discover, like, because now we're talking about health and fitness. I mean,
Mm,
academics is also important, and
mm,
being creative is also important. I think, but from by exposing your child to different things that what they're interested in. And I think what you just said about, like, for us, it's the same, because you look for those people that you can feel, comfortable with. And because, this is only my second year in Jakarta, and you move country and you look for something familiar. So, and with CrossFit, it doesn't matter to which gym you go, you know, you know what to do. You know the community. They are. I can imagine if you don't do CrossFit and you walk into the gym, it's very intimidating because the people can look big and strong, and nobody has a shirt on because it's like 30 degrees here. So it's not, but there are no mirrors. That like it's not vanity. It's just really hot here, and you find that community, and it's and for me, it's really nice to have to be able to talk to people from this country, to talk to Indonesian people, and work out together, and yeah, I think that's my lifeline here.
Yeah, no, and I mean, obviously, again, shout out to Fabio, which I did in the other episode as well, as the owner and the boss of Onyx. I think he's really taken you and Randolph into the community and made you feel very at home there. So that's amazing, and that is part of that is a part that we didn't talk about now at all, a part of sport as well, and this is something that can give our kids or your kids, the listeners' kids, it gives you a sense of community as and when they leave the house, when they go overseas. At least they know, okay, I can rock up and I can go to a football club and football and well, I can find my club, my level, and I can play and I can make friends that way. And it's just another aspect to health, right? The whole social connection piece of sports.
Yeah, I mean, it's your mental health. I know when we came here 2 years ago, my daughter, I mean, for her, China was her home because she was 5 years old when we went to Shanghai, and then she came here in Jakarta. Yeah, you leave your friends behind, you leave your life behind, and I think the first week was quite difficult for her, of course. But the second week, the ECA started at school, and she could join the football team, and she says it was amazing. There were so many girls playing football, and she says after like a few trainings in 1 week, she said, I have so many friends here, and just being able to do that. And that is what you said. That is also an aspect of sports that at school you look for the like-minded people who are as crazy as we are, who like a challenge, and then you keep challenging yourself by not taking things for granted, and finding a new goal because somebody said, hey, run this. Then you think like, why not? Or somebody says, let's go to Bangkok and do a high rocks. Why not?
Yeah.
Let's do a CrossFit competition. Why not? Yeah, there's no limitations to what your body can do, even at this age.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's right. And obviously, if you've started young and if you stayed at it the whole life, then hopefully our kids, by the time they reach our age, they will be still of much higher capacity than we are now. Jeannine, thank you so much for your time and for sharing the stories and the background. It was really very interesting and very inspiring. And again, I hope any listeners taking something away, sitting with their own kids, thinking either young kids that how do we get them into sport, or maybe older high school kids trying to get them back into an active lifestyle. This has hopefully been useful tips that Jeannine has shared, and we can all benefit from that, and your children will benefit from that as they become adults and live a hopefully long and healthy life. So thank you again, Jeannine. I know you are doing the High Rocks together. Well, the same one that I'll be doing with Randolph. You're doing it with another colleague of ours. I know your son is also doing it. So that is the next challenge for us on the horizon.
Yes, I pushed him a little bit. I said, hey, one of our colleagues, he did it in 1 hour and 28, and he played with Noah in the football team. I said, hey, Bilal does it in 1 hour and 28. Shall I book you a ticket as well? And so sometimes you need to use that ego a little bit to push him out of his comfort zone. Yeah,
perfect,
so he's doing
perfect. Okay. Yeah, that would be great, and I'll be happy to see him there as well. I think I'm there on Saturday morning because I'm actually judging. So I'll be judging on Saturday, and then I'll be racing on Sunday. But if he's racing on Saturday, I may get to see him come through the rock zone. Well, thank you, Jeannine. Have a pleasant weekend.
Thank you.
And thanks again for sharing all your tips.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.